Now tonight, what we're going to deal with is marinate, feeding your mind for long-term success. So we're going to continue dealing with the mind. And what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the life of Moses. But here's why. Your mind is like a sponge. We know this. We've heard this before. But whatever it sits in, it soaks up. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 biblical moves that we can sit in, right? And that's going to feed our mind for that long-term success, because winning doesn't just happen, overcoming doesn't just happen, healing doesn't just happen, successes, they don't just happen. And what you did yesterday is not enough to sustain you for today. So we're just going to look at some things, right? Since this mind is going to be a sponge, and it's going to be sitting in something, it's going to be soaking something up, we are going to be deliberate about that moment. All right, so we're going to dive in. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to get in. Okay, I see you, Miss Leah. I am assuming that that means that you can hear me, because I do rely on you guys as my tech team to let me know what is going on. All right, I'm going to give you, make sure you know where you are. And then we're going to dive into the word. Yeah, I'm Pastor Jay with Faith by Hearing, live and coming to you from the beautiful state of Georgia. I'm loving this season because right now it's spring, although the weather has been all over the place. But what is consistent is we have more hours of daylight. So I love it when people have more time to sit in the sun that God made and to get renewed in the life that they're living, because it just helps us, keeps us from being dull. I'm always amazed, you know, about how beautiful the day is. You know, when the sun is bright, it just gives me so much joy. Now, you guys need to turn to Exodus 2. And I just want to make sure that we got this down right. You guys turn to Exodus 2, and we're going to start at verse 11. And we're going to look at Moses as our example as we start dealing with marinating and what to do with our mind, because there was so much about his life that we can just learn these simple little rules. I love sitting in the Word and walking through one lesson and then seeing the things that we can learn, you know, to use in our lives, because we sit in the Word, but you know, you sit inside of your life, and sometimes we can go through things that have us stewing, you know what I mean? Where you get upset and then you're just sitting inside the pain of the thing that is making you upset, and it makes it worse. Right? And the thing about it is that we're always, all of our lives, in every season and in every moment, sitting in something. But I'm noticing the deeper you go into the Word, the more you pay attention to the temple that God gave you and the way that it works. Remember, you are a spirit. You live inside of this body, and you are responsible for your soul. The more we pay attention to the way that it works, the easier it is for us to win, because we know what's going on and we know what we're dealing with, and we begin to know how to check whatever's trying to come for us. Okay, now at Exodus 2:11, Moses is in Egypt at this moment. We're just going to look at, I think, 4 or 5 verses. In the course of time, Moses grew up. Then he went to see his own people and watched them suffering under forced labor. He saw a Hebrew, one of his own people, being beaten by an Egyptian. So you could basically say Moses was adopted as a child. Moses was originally born as a Hebrew, right? And then because they were killing the Hebrew babies, at the time, his mother, you know, was trying to keep him alive. And so one of the king's daughters finds the baby Moses and raises the baby as her own, right? But her what do you call him? His nursemaid, the person who helped her take care of the baby, was his sister. You know what I mean? So even though he grew up in Egypt, in the castles, you know what I'm saying, among the king, the queen, you know, whatever the equivalent of is, the role of prince, he knows where he comes from originally. So now he has finally grown up. In Exodus 2, verse 11, he goes out among his own people and he sees them suffering, and it bothers him, right? And because an Egyptian, which is what he has been raised to be, is beating up an Israelite, which is what he was born as, You know what I mean? Which I love it because it is so many of us deal with these kind of, dual identities that we have to figure out how to marry together, how to manage and deal. Okay, keep going. Look at verse 12. He looked all around, and when he didn't see anyone, he beat the Egyptian to death and hid the body in the sand. And so what's interesting, okay, so when he looked and it looked like he could get away with it, then he beat the Egyptian, and then he beat the Egyptian to death, and then he hid the body so that no one would find it, probably trying to go on with the life that he had lived, as an Egyptian, as a free man. Verse 13, when Moses went there the next day, he saw two Hebrew men fighting. So the next day he comes on back through. He asked the one who started the fight, why are you beating another Hebrew? He's trying to see why these two people from the same culture are fighting each other. The man asked, who made you our ruler and judge? Are you going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? They don't care who he is. They see him as a murderer. So why are you talking to me about what I'm doing? Is anybody talking to you about what you're doing? Then Moses was afraid and thought that everyone knew what he had done. You know how, y'all ever notice how whenever we do wrong and we realize one person heard it, then we think everybody heard it? Not in that moment, but look what happened. Verse 15. When Pharaoh heard what Moses had done, he tried to kill him. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian. Okay, here's what's going on with Moses. Moses is now grown. So he basically lives, and roughly it's about from birth to now around 40 years. Now, Moses killed, let's be honest, there was something in Moses that was seeking out who he really was. Right? His mind was searching. It was seeking. It was trying to figure out, who am I? Where did I come from? Where do I stand? What matters to me? And because he does know that he comes from these oppressed people, it disturbed and it bothered him to see them being oppressed. His mind was seeking something. Moses ended up in this situation because he was seeking and he was searching for his origin and for his purpose, but he had no guidance in this journey, in this moment. So then he just reacted without guidance. Okay. So then, and that'll happen to us if we can be seeking for a right thing and a right answer. But if we have no guidance, or if we have the wrong guidance, we will accidentally slip into a mess. We will come up with a base idea and then tell ourselves it's a good idea and then act it out and then not wake up until after we finish. So he ended up in this moment because he was seeking his origin and he was seeking his purpose, but he had no guidance. Now here's the big deal. The first thing, your mind will seek. That's what your mind is going to do. It is going to search out things. It is going to discover questions and it's going to seek out answers. This is how we are designed. Right? This is how we function, right? We may taste something that we like, and my aunt is like this. If she tastes something, my aunt is like this, my mother was like this, my grandmother was like this. If they taste something that they like, their mind automatically starts seeking out, how did they make that? What are those flavors? You know what I mean? And start figuring out how to pull that together, right? And make it for themselves. Our minds are designed to seek. When we look up and we don't like the moment that we're living in or the life that we're living in, it is normal for your mind to ask, how did I get here? And you start seeking out what happened to put me in this place, right? When you decide that you want to be in a better position in life, it is normal for your mind to seek out an answer to deliver, right? How do I get out of this mess? How do I get to a better situation? Right? What am I created for? Where did I come from? Does my life matter to anyone? Does anyone love me for me? Right? Right? It's normal for your mind to seek out things. Look at this. Matthew 7:7-8. When Jesus talks about it, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks the door will be open. So even Jesus is talking about that if you have questions, ask for the answers. If you're looking for something, seek for the answers, right? If you want to walk through a door, knock for the breakthrough, for the answer, for the next move, to step into that next thing. Now, here's what gets us is sometimes we will seek, but not pay attention to what we're really seeking. Okay? Because you could be seeking happiness. You think you're seeking happiness, but if you don't check yourself, you'll be seeking status, position. You know what I'm saying? Authority. You know what I mean? You'll be seeking competition. You want what he has, right? But then you'll trick yourself into thinking the status is going to give you the happiness. This is why the word is so powerful when you deal with a mind that's searching and that is seeking, because the word will reveal, the Holy Spirit will reveal to you the root of you and what's really going on with you. And in that revelation, it will help you tell the truth about what is happening to you, through you, in you. And so then when you seek, it will purify your journey. It will purify what you are looking for. There's nothing more powerful than when you can tell yourself the truth about what's going on the inside of you. And then if you don't like what's going on the inside of you, present that chaos, that drama, that greed, that selfishness, that fear, that pain to God, and there can be healing in it. The word itself says the truth sets you free, right? So there's a clarity in it. So even if the truth is ugly, God is not afraid of your ugly truth. The Spirit of God is the exact place that your ugly truth needs to be. Look at this. Not only that, a seeking spirit, a mind that is seeking. Remember, Moses ended up in that situation because he was seeking his origin and he was seeking his purpose. Because technically he knew who his mama was, his sister was, who he came from. But he was seeking purpose, but he was seeking it without guidance. Look at Proverbs. Solomon talks about this thing, this guidance, this help. Proverbs 11 and 14, he talks about it a lot, but we're just going to look at one verse. Where no counsel is, the people fall. Moses had no counsel, right? And so he fell. Right? That move was, he made a mess. Now look at the second part of Proverbs 11 and 14. But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So if we can have the right guidance, you see what I'm saying? And the right voice, the right people speaking into us, right? Then it helps us, it gives us safety, it gives us protection. And here's what's beautiful. Because we are human, we're going to make some mistakes. But the way those mistakes look when you have counsel are very different, right? Because the goal is to make the kind of mistakes that you can recover from. You know what I'm saying? The kind that you can learn from, but they don't cost you your whole life. You know what I mean? Like that, they don't cost you everything. Okay, look at this. There's another thing that happens is that when you have counsel, it'll cut the mistakes in half because they can intervene and give you wisdom. But also when you have counsel, your fallings, you don't stay on the ground as long. Because the counsel is there to tell you to get back up again and how to get back up again and how to walk forward and how not to be controlled by shame and controlled by the fear. Just because you failed once doesn't mean you're going to fail forever. Remember, every moment is teaching you something. Okay? And then when you get out here, sometimes you can live in a life where people have double standards, where they have grace for themselves and their own mistakes, and they have this heightened judgment for you when you make mistakes. This is what I love about God. You run to the Spirit of God and you walk through your shortcomings with God, and it changes the game for you. How does God see you after you make a mistake? He sees you as someone in need of grace. He sees you as someone in training. He sees you as someone in need of additional counsel, right? If you can get back up again and keep moving forward, there's more for you, okay? The reason why we're talking is that at this moment, we're looking at Moses as he has fallen, okay? So now he's a murderer. He is wanted by the king, Pharaoh, and Pharaoh wants to kill him because he's a murderer, and now he is running away from the problem that he has made, okay? So here's the first thing about your mind. Your mind is going to seek out answers. It's going to seek out answers to the questions. You make sure you're asking the right set of questions. And how do you do that? Counsel helps you. You make sure you're finding the right answers. How do you do that? Counsel helps you, because he got into that situation because he was seeking out purpose without guidance. Now look at this. That's not the only thing. Your mind is going to soak. Right? Wherever your mind sits, whatever your mind sits in is going to soak it up. It's like food. If you marinate it, so like if you have your favorite dish and you know how to cook it, you know what I'm saying? And you know exactly these are the seasonings that make it taste good, right? And you know if you put those seasonings on it and you let that dish, whether you're cooking your favorite roasted, lamb dish, or you're cooking your favorite vegetable dish, or you're cooking your favorite dessert. You ever notice how some dishes taste better the next day? That's because it's been marinating in all of the flavor and in all of the sauces. But you could take perfectly good ingredients and put the wrong thing on top of them and let those ingredients sit in that. And when it's time to eat it, it tastes like trash. What you sit in is what you're going to soak up. So if the food sits in poison, it soaks up poison. When you eat the food, it fills you with poison. But if the food sits in flavor, it soaks up the flavor. And when you eat it, it fills you with flavor. Okay, so what we sit in, we soak. Your mind is going to soak. There is no way around it. So wherever your mind is sitting, it is soaking. Okay, so if your mind is sitting on a steady diet of social media, and your spirit is fed by you got a 1-minute pastor, because you have no pastor and you get it from positivity videos on YouTube. So you got a 1-minute pastor. Here's the problem with it. See, the 1 minutes are designed to give you a quick injection and lead you back to a deeper study. But for those that just feed on the 1 minute, you have a lot of incomplete thoughts, incomplete lessons. Right? You don't have the full story, right? That means that you end up with a shallow understanding of a lot of things instead of a deeper knowing about the main thing. It is not enough that if you heard the soundbite, what you sit in is what you will soak up. You need to know, well, what do I need to be sitting in? And what do I need to be soaking up? And what's going to happen to my body, my mind, my spirit based on what I choose to soak? If you soak up a steady diet that men ain't worth nothing, that's what your mind is going to believe. If you soak up a steady diet that your race is the worst race on the planet, that's what your mind is going to believe. But there's a lot of places on the internet. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of messages out there. You have to be deliberate about what you're consuming, about what you're allowing your mind to sponge up into it. So let's go back to this. If every failure from yesterday convinces you that that's all there is, and that is all you do, you always hang out with people that always talk about everything you did wrong and never talk about what you did right. You know what I'm saying? If 1% of the time they're talking about your successes and 99% of the time they're talking about what's wrong with you, and basically they're telling you, you ain't nothing, or you ain't nothing except for me. All of that stuff is gonna mess with you. It's going to begin to convince you that every failure of yesterday is defining you, when in reality, that's a lie. God doesn't live by that. In fact, the fact that he gave you grace overrides that. You are not defined by everything you did wrong yesterday. You are defined by the grace of God. And look at this. And you are strengthened by every time you get back up again and keep moving forward inside of that grace. Your mind is going to soak in something. You have to be deliberate about it. So if you find your mind on that hamster wheel where it just keeps rehearsing every mistake, or it keeps rehearsing all of your fears, or it keeps rehearsing, I'm tired, I'm not gonna go through this again, all of that. If you don't deliberately interrupt yourself, it doesn't mean that you're lying. right? When you're saying that stuff, you're not lying. So some of us lie to ourselves, but some of us are telling ourselves the truth. You went through everything you're talking about. But I'm noticing you have to be deliberate to interrupt, to stop that hamster wheel from running. Like, we're not going to run around in circles all day and get nowhere, and get off that wheel and start walking toward what God says about your situation. You have to interrupt your thoughts. Okay? Okay? So now, if what you sit in is what you're going to soak up, then this is where the Word of God comes in. This is why the music matters. You know, I love, because I feel like my ex-husband used to whisper in my ear, and in public it would look like he was being romantic, but he would be saying ugly, nasty things, right? And it bugged the crap out of me. And no matter what I said, he kept, doing that stuff. Okay? So he would whisper these negative things into me. And unfortunately for me, I've had different relationships where there seems to always be someone trying to convince me that I am not enough without them. And the reality is that in God, you become more than enough. And in relationships, God takes two whole people and pulls them together to make a whole relationship. So it was a lot of strangeness. It goes against the Spirit of God, right? And since He lives in me, it would make me uncomfortable. Now look at this. If I keep soaking that message up, it steals my confidence and my self-esteem. If you replace that and so because of these negative whispers, literal whispers, now I record myself whispering what God says about me. So I will whisper what He says in the Word. He hears my tears, right? He records my misery and my pain. He is aware of what's going on. He has made me bold and courageous. I am engrafted on the palm of His hand. I whisper these things to myself, record them, and play them back. Right? Because what my mind sits in is what my mind is going to soak up. And I want her to soak up what God said. I want God's word to override every word ever spoken over me, directly to me, behind my back, or around me. Right? If anybody ever tried to hoodoo me with they mess in they home, I want the word of God just floating all around me and marinated all inside me, shaping how I see myself. Only in marinating in the Word do you stand a chance of catching up with the love of God and the way He sees His daughter and the way He sees His son. So it can't be what you hear on Sunday is not enough. What you hear on Sunday is an instruction for what to continue to hear throughout the week. So you go seek out more of that so it can go deeper on the inside of you. Now, Moses, for 40 years, he was soaking in Egypt, right? As a prince. So he learned the lay of the land. He lived a personal good life, but he was aware of where he came from. And his purpose kind of started to well up inside of him without guidance. Then he kills an Egyptian, hides the body, right, and has to run to save his life. Now, for 40 years, or roughly 40 years, he is now soaking in Midian, because that's where he ran to, right, as a shepherd. So now for 40 years, he's a shepherd. He meets his wife. They have children. He's taking care of the flock for 40 years. This is what this man is soaking in, right? So now you got to know that's a different life. First, you're a prince. Now you're a shepherd, right? Okay, and a father and a wife, right? And you learn to care. Because see, as a prince, people are running around caring for you. As a shepherd, you learn to, as a shepherd, as a husband, as a father, you learn to care for others. See what I'm saying? So that's being developed. He's soaking in that. That's being developed inside of him. Okay, then God shows up in that burning bush. The Spirit of God comes and talks to him and gives him an instruction. Okay, now Moses is given the instruction and God is sending him back to Egypt, right? The place he came from, the city that's got a, you know what I mean? They got a hit out on him, a legal hit because he committed murder. Now, whenever he goes back into Egypt and does what God tells him to do, he's going to end up spending 40 years soaking again in the desert as a leader. Right? These seasons of our life, God uses them. He will use them to fill us up with a skill set, to fill us up with a knowing, right? We will develop these rote skills. And this is what I mean. When you do something all the time, it becomes rote. You can do it without thinking about it. So I drive to church every Sunday, and I drive a certain way, right? And I do it again on Tuesday, right? And I drive a certain way. Because of that, anytime I start driving that way, if I am not thinking about it, right, my hands and my feet will have me at the church. Because it's ingrained into me. It's a habit. It's a rote skill. It's second nature. We have these seasons of life where in these seasons we are required to do certain things over and over and over again. God uses that to develop, right, deeper skills. So what happens is Moses is a shepherd. He was the shepherd to his wife. He's a shepherd to his kids. He's a shepherd to his flock. Over and over and over again. So when he reaches the final season of his life, when he needs to shepherd the Israelites out of Egypt and out of a negative mindset and into the promised land, he's able to do it. It's really second nature because of the training. What you sit in is what you're going to soak up. It was in him to be a shepherd. So even though Moses was the one who was scared when God called him. Y'all been called before by God. God giving you an instruction, God giving you an assignment, and it seems bigger than you and more than you can do. And you know what that fear feels like. God ain't talking to me. I'm not the one for this. You know how you go through all that stuff, and yet God acts like he can't hear your fear because all he can see is his grace that he's given you to execute the assignment. Moses didn't think he was qualified. He told God, I'm a stutterer. I can't, all the stuff. Right? And eventually he did go do what God said do. And we're going to look at that next week because there's a lot that happens in the third thing that your mind will do. But I don't want to fast track it. I want us to be able to walk through it and see it because we're going to sit in it ourselves, right? So we got this. Your mind is going to seek, be deliberate about what you are seeking out and be deliberate about counsel that helps you seek in the right direction and in wisdom. And your mind is going to soak whatever it sits in, is going to soak it up. So be deliberate about where you are sitting. You may be dealing with a situation that you don't like. But in that season of, if it's where you can't escape it yet, make sure that you are feeding your mind, feeding your spirit, and sitting beside the people that are walking it out the way you want to walk it out. Okay? I noticed for me, one of the things that I have such a heart for women who are people who are dealing with and overcoming abuse of any kind. But one thing that I noticed whenever I was first coming out of abuse was that I was seeking out communities of people who maybe understood what I was dealing with without me having to use so many words to be understood. And I did find one, and it was a blessing. But in that community, it was about two really just amazing powerhouse people. Two people walking it out the way I wanted to walk it out. But the others, I loved them, and they blessed me in the season. But I would look and I would notice where they are 10 years from now is not where I want to be. Where they are 20 years from now is not where I want to be. So when you are in the soaking season, you make sure you sit yourself beside, you receive counsel from, mentorship from people who are walking it out, right? And landing where you want to land. So if you are sitting with angry people, that's what you're going to soak in. That's what you're going to take up, right? And if you're sitting with people with peace, that's what you're going to soak up. If you're sitting with clueless people, that's what you're going to soak up, right? I want to be positioned. I want to sit with God's people, and I want them to have a boldness, and I want them to have true healing, right? So you be deliberate about those moments because this is the way your mind is designed, and we're going to honor that. Okay, this is all we have the time for today, so we're going to stop that. I hope you got that first part. We're going to come back and deal with the rest of it because we got one more thing that your mind does, right? And we get to see Moses' mind do it at least 3 times. So we need to look at that third and final thing. I'm glad to see you guys right here, especially since it's so beautiful outside where I am in the world. I'm glad you dropped in for this quick lesson so you can receive this and then go back out into the world. You know how I am. It's still resurrection season. Right? And so in this season, I just don't want you to forget, I know Resurrection Sunday, it just passed, but it's still resurrection season. So I do want you to remember, we always say this, Jesus got back up. And so what that tells you is you can get back up. Right? Do not just lay down and die in the middle of your situation, right? And if you've had victory and you found yourself without victory again, understand that it is temporary, right? Because it is still resurrection season. You get back up, right? It's spring. It's a time for that renewing and that rebirth, and the new version is just going out into the world, and you just trust the Father on your journey. Your journey is not over yet if you are older, not over yet if you are suffering. And if you are younger, there are certain things that if you listen, God is having you to move on now and not just to wait, okay? It's a beautiful time of life, even if it's challenging, because you're not walking through it by yourself. Amen?